Alright, let's get going on a time lapse here of painting over this bit of 3D from Blender. I'm just starting off with that Acviz filter. I'm just masking that back into a good few of the areas around the image. Just painting with white into where I think it might be a bit nicer. I've just duplicated the layer as well to do an overall global adjustment, and I still have the layer beneath that's the lighter value, so I'm masking out the darker value just to get a bit of a hot spot there where I want the focal point to be. And you can see me, I've lassoed in an area there. I've just wanted to separate out the sky. I bring in the clown pass a little bit later, so that's the curveful image that you might have seen around, just for making the selections a little bit easier. And yeah, just working into the mountains now in the back. I generally start with the sky and work my way forward from the back of the image. Always starting with the sky though, since that's going to dominate the overall image. So I was using some curvy hills there, but sticking with the design and the shape language of the image, it's geometric, so that wouldn't really look right in this case. And yeah, I've put in some clouds using that cloud brush, and yeah, I'm just like, a lot of the image is already, it's almost done for you. It's a case of just seasoning in a bit, and but mostly it's adding atmosphere, because it can be hard to get that in Blender. So just separating out pieces and then enhancing what's there. So you can see me, I've done a few brush strokes on the waterfall now, and just trying to increase the power of that, and using a chalk brush then on the rock. So you can see there I brought in that clown pass. Again, I'll be showing how to create one of those in Blender later on. It's very simple, and so it's just for making selections a little bit easier. And yeah, more atmosphere and separation, describing this landscape, because it's absolutely colossal, so there's going to be a huge amount of atmosphere. And then water particles from all the waterfalls that are going to be crashing, so taking that into account. And yeah, just messing up some of the edges then as well, getting rid of some of that 3D look of the really hard edges, and especially when something's so far away like that, the edge won't particularly be crisp, and then when it's so atmospheric as well. So yeah, just repeating a lot of those tips. And yeah, working into the river now, and trying to give that a little bit of a nicer shape and some more variation. And then there's a smaller waterfall here that I'm going to work into. And yeah, some clown pass usage. So then when I have that selection done, I'll select the inverse, so I can just do an overall fog adjustment to the lassoed area behind. And yeah, using those dirty tricks again. Yeah, I've cut out one of my pieces here, and I'm bringing that in to see where I can use it, using the masking trick. Like, just once you have it roughly placed, and then you can just paint into it and just see what kind of results you can get from it, rather than just completely just throwing it in there, but using the shape that's already there from Blender as a rough guide. So that's one of the nice ways of using your 3D geometry. And yeah, just working in some little details then. I go back and forth on this a little bit. I felt like the value was too strong there, so I've knocked that back slightly. I'm also using the median filter because I felt as though the photographic detail was too strong. So just to simplify that down a bit, the median filter worked quite well there, and I used it strength of 2. And yeah, more work on the waterfall. That 632 fog brush is particularly good, and I've got it on the rotation setup, so you can get some lovely atmospheric cloud effects with it. So I use that quite a lot. And yeah, just continuing, more separation, atmosphere, getting rid of some of the harsh edges. and I didn't quite have a waterfall that would work here, so this one was the closest one, and it required using the distortion tool to get the perspective a little bit closer to what's there, and then we can paint in the rest of the fixes. So it worked quite well in this case, and it gave me something to work with, and just it speeds things up essentially. And you might not necessarily recognize that waterfall anymore once you start painting into it and changing the size of the shapes. So again, I've used that clown pass selection and inversed. I've also knocked the values back there, as again I felt they were a little bit too strong for what I have in the image. We can always exaggerate those later on. And yeah, this waterfall is particularly nice. So I'm doing some messing with levels and curves, and the lightness on hue saturation, just to try and implement that. Again, using the smudge tool, and then a combination of some of the painterly brushy brushes to try and implement that. Suggesting that some vegetation as well at the top of that cliff. And then I'm thinking maybe the top of the waterfall is in a little bit more shadow, and down near the base is where we have stronger light hitting. Because I didn't really want the eye to be directed up to the top of that part, because it was more down, so having that top part of the waterfall in shadow would make a little bit more sense. And yet I've selected this top right section of rock using the clown pass, and then use some large chalk brushes to simplify some of the detail, and then adding in atmosphere. So there's a combination of brushes going on here, and again we can be quite suggestive since this is a good bit away. And there's a nice chalk brush here, the 108 there, again with the rotation setup, and when you move that to a vertical alignment, it can work quite well for suggesting that rock texture. And just a little bit of a layer clean up there. I've clipped all my layers to the bottom piece, so I'm not going outside the canvas. And another instance of this chalky brush, just trying to solve some of the geo here. I've also grabbed the mixer brush, and I'm using those two in combination then to see what I can get. And then since we're looking at this piece of cliff from a side-on kind of angle, getting a side-on waterfall would make more sense here, and also drawing the eye into that little section of terrain. That will help point the eye in there. And selecting that 80, it's like a horizontal align brush, so that works quite well for those flat rivers. Just in using that nice brush selection just to make life a bit easier where I can. So you'll see me using that for the rivers quite a lot. And then I'm connecting up some of the areas down at the ground. Some of it works quite well that I've got from Blender, and then some of it needs to be enhanced and changed. And you can see me adding in suggestions of trees and bushes, a little bit of a sandbank there as well. So just repeating a lot of these steps now. And then because the area behind there is lighter, I want the that piece of cliff to stand out a little bit more. So I want the value to be a bit darker, so they're not getting lost. because there's a lot of distance between those two. You see me there as well. I duplicate the layer I had already created. That's it. Whenever you can do that because it's a good time saver. And then you can also just continue painting into it, and you already have 80% of the work done. So I was able to reuse that waterfall, and it just required a little bit of adjusting to get it to fit into that area. Later on, I knocked those two back from what I remember, and because I don't know, they were a little bit too distracting there, and I wanted to have a bigger waterfall over to the left. And then yeah, you can see me reusing that one again, and it just required a little bit of distortion. Using the clown pass here as well, I was able to just quickly select out the part there that was the rock that was just sitting in front. And yeah, again, I'm trying to get some reuse here. That side waterfall looked particularly nice. So yeah, a little bit of smudging and enhancement to get it to implement into that area. I'm also seeing if I can get a small second one to fall beside it. And then I need to link up those rivers there on top of the cliff. And yeah, I'm just simplifying the rock over here. It was very detailed, so I've knocked all that back, and I'm also doing some quick value adjustments to that flat area to the left. And now I want a little bit of separation from those cliffs in the foreground, because everything else is really far away, so there's going to be a good bit of atmosphere there. So I just want to separate those values out. And yeah, you've seen there that I've knocked one of those waterfalls back on the left, and I'm bringing in my favourite piece here, this lovely floodplain piece. And yeah, just trying to implement that then into that area. So it's just such a quick way of enhancing your image. And I'm just simplifying some of the areas and adding some of the flow. And I've used it again here in the bottom right foreground. And it really doesn't take much adjusting to get it to fit. I also wanted to exaggerate the reflection, so I've made some selections of the water just to suggest that how reflective it is. And I've reused that piece again, scaled it down, flipped it, and now I'm painting in on top of that again. And would you know I've used the same piece? Maybe not. And yet another side-on waterfall. This is over into the right of the image, away from the focal point, so I've brought the values down. I use that quite often, where I'll just use the hue, saturation, lightness adjustment. It's quite good for doing those kind of global value, like just knocking the value down. And yeah, so for terms of like variation in waterfall size, I wanted to have a much bigger one then as well, because if you look into that area, there's loads of really skinny waterfalls, so I wanted a thicker one then to give it a bit more variation, because everything else there around it is really skinny. And yeah, like if you're thinking about that design principle, the big, medium, small kind of idea. So you have a shape where something's maybe 80%, another shape's 15%, and then another shape is 5%. So I'm always trying to think like that, and as much as I can, to create variation and not having things equally spaced apart. like even in your spacing you can have that 80-15-5. It's not, it doesn't just apply to sizes of things, it can apply to spacing, like plenty of things in when you're working. And yeah, I've brought in another floodplain piece and I'm trying to link that up then with the ground. And linking up some of the waterfalls that I already had over to the left. The value is a little bit strong on that water, so I've just grabbed one of the hard brushes and did an overall adjustment on it, being quite loose. And yet reusing another piece that I've already had set up there. And we're just getting that hint of a little bit more detail and fidelity. And yeah, just thinking about the flow of the shapes and like flowing the eye over to that area to the left. Yeah, like just directing the eye over there. That's where the rivers are leading. And yeah, just some overall adjustments here. I'm getting rid of some of the hard edges and just creating a little bit more simplification in the areas where I don't want the eye to go. If we think back to the Jamie Jones image, all those areas off to the side are really simplified where they're almost abstract, so making an attempt at some of that here. So yeah, using smudge brushes and very painterly brushes for that. I'm also, the edge there where that cliff was near the top of the image, like it was quite close to the edge of the canvas. It felt a little bit awkward, so in this case I can use a little bit of cloud cover just to get rid of that, because it was drawing my eye there a little bit too much. So you're looking out for those areas that are grabbing too much attention when they shouldn't really be. So always trying to look out for that. Where is my eye being drawn to? And yeah, some more reuse here with the foreground. I was just cleaning up that layer, so I just had the waterfall on its own. There was all these other remnants. And yeah, you've another example here of using a photograph. I'm just warping it into place. And yeah, paint masking it back in then, and just simplifying some of the detail, just to get it to work with the flow and direction of where that waterfall's going. And I'm just messing around with a couple of brushes here that will work for that waterfall texture. And again, a global adjustment with the values. And yeah, I wanted to separate out that piece again. It's much closer to the camera than the piece behind it, so I should knock that back and simplify that area that's sitting in behind there. And I'm reusing that piece again, the top plane that I just painted, and trying to get that to work on the piece over to the right side. And yeah, pretty much destroyed it with all those brush strokes, but works fine for what we needed to do. I'm coming back in now with some value adjustments. I've just done the levels on a couple of those rivers, just to as if some light is breaking through the clouds and hitting those areas, and it just gets your eye to bounce around the image a little bit more. In theory anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. And yeah, some global adjustments now with adding more atmosphere into the image with a soft brush, and just knocking back values where I don't want your eye to go. I felt like that waterfall there was quite strong. It needed a little bit more atmosphere as well. I think I come back a little bit again, and then like the river below there, the value is quite strong, so I need to knock that back as well. There was quite a hard edge there where the cliff was meeting the ground, and I just wanted to soften that up, as it was just suggesting that a bit more atmosphere there. And yeah, I've done another one of these global adjustments. I've flattened all my layers into one, and did a levels on it, and now I'm painting back in some light areas and just experimenting to make that focal point pop a bit more. And yeah, just more atmospheric effects there around the focal area. I've flattened the image again now, and we are coming to the end of it. So I've grabbed a smudge brush. I've flattened my layer into just one layer now, with a Control Alt Shift E, and I'm bouncing around the image and just simplifying, getting rid of some of the hard edges, enhancing some of the areas where I want the eye to go, a little bit more reflectivity in that water. I'm also seeing if I can enhance the river there leading up to the focal point, just a little bit more highlight maybe in that particular area. And yeah, suggesting that a little bit more river in the background, and some more vegetation in these massive floodplains. And I'm sitting back from the image now and looking at where's my eye being drawn, and I've finally knocked back that bit of river. I only noticed it there. I was too close to the image. So yeah, it's like standing back and just taking a sec to look at the overall image and how's it feeling. And yeah, just I've added in a suggestion of the light coming from the top right using the radial gradient tool, and just lowered the opacity on that. So yeah, that is more or less it, guys. Thank you for watching this bit. I'll see you in the next one.